Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Colleen, and I thought winter was over, but if you're looking out through my kitchen window, you'll notice that the snow is falling. Kind of tricked us. I got up this morning and we have about an inch of fresh snow. And there was the possibility, according to the weatherman, that we would get a little bit of snow, but at this time in the year, you don't expect it. But here it is, coming down anyway. And today I am playing host to one of the local organizations that I belong to. We're going to have a meeting here at my house, and so I'm kind of an old-fashioned girl in that I like to have, you know, be able to offer some sort of a tartlet or a square or something to my guests in my home, and a cup of coffee or tea. And so I thought I'd get at it early this morning, and I'll make up this, I'm not even sure what to call it. It's made with puff pastry, so it goes really fast, and it's made with frozen mixed berries, and that goes quite fast. So the whole thing doesn't take a long time to make, and I can have it ready for when my guests come at 1 o'clock without any problems at all. I hope if you're looking for a new dessert to feed to your friends or even your family, then that you'll stick around and see what I'm up to in the kitchen here today. And I'll be right back after this. Now I have my electric frying pan out here, and I have a bag of berries and cherries. And this includes strawberries, blueberries, dark sweet cherries, and blackberries. You could use whatever kind of berries suits you, or any kind of fruit for that matter. I'm using frozen berries because these frozen berries are quite economical. This is 600 grams of fruit that's been frozen at the height of freshness, and I picked this up for $5.99. When I picked up a pint of blueberries a few days ago, it was $7.99. So it's quite a difference if you're making something like this to use berries that have been frozen. And I just want to cook these down and get them to a point where they're almost jam-like, and then I'm going to thicken them up. And if along the way I notice that I usually don't have that problem with frozen berries, but if I notice along the way that they're getting a little dry, I will add some moisture to them just to make sure that they are getting cooked right through, because I do want to be able to mash them some. In fact, I may grab my masher. Some of them are still quite frozen. I just put the bag into the microwave oven for 3 minutes to get it started, so everything is going quite quickly. I just have to find a handy dandy masher that always gets pushed to the back of the drawer. I have one of these. I don't use it for much, but for the few things that I do use it for, it's very handy, and this is one of them. So I am going to cook this down, and then I am going to add some thickener to it because I want it to be thick, like a thick jam. So I'm going to add cornstarch today, and I am also going to add some honey for sweetening. And this is working out really well. I'm very, very happy with it. Now, once I've got this all cooked down, I am going to put it into a bowl and put it in the fridge to cool. And I'm probably going to let it cool, stirring it once or twice for about a half an hour before I I start the rest of this process. What do you think? Looks good so far. Smells delicious in here. Okay. I think that's about where I want it to be. I'm going to add a third of a cup or thereabouts of honey, just because I like the sweetness of honey in here. It complements the berries really well. And I am using local to me honey, but you use whatever is available to you. And there we go. Honey's in. Oh, I better set that aside to wash that because it's a gooey mess now. And stir the honey in well. I hope you guys are all well. I would say we are here. Things are good. Even with the surprise snow today. Glad I didn't take my winter tires off yet, because I can see I might still need them. Okay, now, you will never really be able to accurately know how much juice is in this. So I'm going to start off with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. I'm going to mix that in really well, and we will see if I need more or less or what. But I do want it to be quite thick. So get it in there, get it moving about. I see that it's starting to thicken. You definitely don't want to put so much cornstarch in there that you can taste the floury taste of the cornstarch. That's not good either. But I hope you can see what I'm doing here. That it's coming up to be quite jammy. And I think we're getting there. I'm just going to stir it for a couple more minutes. Let some of the steam evaporate from it. See how it looks. I don't know, do you belong to any groups or organizations? I belong to several local groups and organizations, and I'm glad that at my age I'm still able to be active in them. But it's also nice to see young people, younger people coming in and having the same kind of passion for these organizations that I have had in the past. And I am, you know, I'm a pretty skilled board member at this point, because I've been sitting on boards now for probably 40 years, maybe more than that. I guess after my kids started to get older, I started. My daughter is 52, and so that gives you an idea how long I've been at it, I guess. I could do that math too. Okay. So I feel like once this cools, it's going to be as thick as I want it to be. So I am going to call it and say that 2 tablespoons of cornstarch was enough. But if you find that it's still too runny, then definitely add a little more. But I would do it a teaspoon at a time after you put the initial one in, not a tablespoon. Okay, I'm going to shut this off and get it into a bowl, and I'll put it in the fridge, and I'll bring you back when we're ready to start rolling out the puff pastry. Well, I'm going to move on to the next step now, and that would be rolling out the puff pastry. I have 2 packets of puff pastry. I'm not sure what size you get them where you live, but I am using this particular brand because it's what's available to me in my grocery store and the only one that I can find. I've allowed I set these into the refrigerator yesterday, frozen, and took them out this morning and let them come to room temperature for about, I'm gonna say, a half an hour. And they're really soft now, so I know that I'm going to need a bit of bench flour here and give this a swirl about. I'm going to try and maintain the rectangle shape as much as I can. This particular brand comes split in the middle, so you could only use half of it if that was your intent. But I'm making a big slice today, so I am going to keep that together. And I'm happy to use a little extra flour if I need to. I'm going to flour my pin. Make sure that it's well floured. And I'll begin rolling. And I want to keep moving this and making sure that it's not sticking. And I feel a little bit of sticky. I'm just going to add a little more flour. I'm going to roll the other way. Now, I have a piece of parchment paper, the square, over here on the side. So I definitely don't want it to be longer than my parchment paper because my parchment paper is going to fit in my pan perfectly, so I don't want to overdo the pan, if you know what I mean. So I'm just going to kind of check it. I feel like it could go a little more, but I also want to go the other way with it. And I don't want to lose its shape. So this usually works out pretty well. And I am going to take this to about a 1/4 inch. Again, I am not going to lose or overshoot my paper. I'm going to slide my paper over with it on, and I am going to just roll until I've got the desired width. And I'm going to move that one aside, and I'm going to start on the other one. Same process, exactly. Open it up. I'll get both of these ready before I start to do anything else, because this doesn't take long for sure. And I hope that you'll realize how simple this is, and you can surprise somebody with it. It's also one of those dishes you could cut in half with absolute certainty that it'll be just fine. In fact, if you get the same kind of puff pastry as I have, you'll be able to just buy one box and go from there, and then just use half a bag of berries, and you'll end up with something that's half this size that might work for a dessert for a midweek dessert. So I'm going to start here. It wasn't sticking, so I'm going to go the other way now. And I want this one to be the lid for that one. So that's my goal now, is to not overshoot the size. Now, just keep working it. This is a process because it's so quick anyway. It's a process you should not rush too much, because you're trying to make these two things fit together. Now, if you want it to get really fancy with this, I'm just going to check this for size now. If you wanted to get really fancy with it and you weren't happy with the sizes, you could definitely take a knife and square them off. I think that this is going to work. So I'm going to put this one back on the baking sheet and bring the baking sheet back here. I've set my oven to 356 degrees because that's what my recipe called for. And I think we get these odd numbers when we're trying to convert from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So if the recipe was originally in Celsius and we're taking it to Fahrenheit, we end up with odd numbers. That's what I think. Okay. Now, next step is cream cheese. I have 1 block of cream cheese here, softened to room temperature, and then I actually put it into the microwave for a little bit. You know what doing that is. You got to watch it like a hawk. I don't want to go right to the edge with this. In fact, I am going to make sure that I don't go right to the edge. So I'm going to take my time doing this. If you find that that amount of cream cheese is kind of more than you think you need, you can add less. I think that the cream cheese really adds to the dish. So I'm going to follow along. Whoops, I've just got to an offset. No, it's not offset, just a plain spatula. And I'm just covering the whole surface. So far, so good. Seems like a pretty easy thing to work on. Let me get rid of this out of my way. I'm going to try and put in a little bit of B-roll probably right here just to show you my Christmas cactus, or I'm not sure what kind of a cactus it is. It's I think it's an Easter cactus maybe, but it started blooming on the American Thanksgiving, and it is still blooming. It is still at it. It has never stopped. It just has gone around and around the plant, and it did the same thing last year. Now, I used to have a Christmas cactus that bloomed for a month and then it was over with. But this fellow has given me pretty consistent blooms for a long period of time. Okay, I just heard my oven beep. That means it's up to temperature. And I'm just smoothing this out somewhat. And making sure that I use all of this. I was really happy when I went to the store to get cream cheese that it was on sale. I know that as we live in different parts of the world, prices are way different. Now I've got some cinnamon, and I'm going to be quite generous with the cinnamon, but I also don't want it to get outside the cream cheese too much, because I want to be able to seal these edges together, and I won't be able to do that if it's covered with cream cheese. I mean, sorry, if it's covered with something dry like cinnamon. I know that looks like a lot, but this recipe can take it. Okay, now I'm going to grab a spoon and grab the filling and be back to do this. Now the filling's still a little bit warm, but the stuff that is totally cooled on the top is thick the way I want it to be. So I'm quite confident that as this cools, it'll be just fine. I'm just scooping it by the scoopfuls onto the pastry I will end up with a little bit of the filling left over, which is fine because served as a dessert, I can add a little more to the top as I serve it out. You don't want it to be super thick, but you want people to know that they're getting something they can recognize, so that there's enough fruit in it that they're not guessing what it is in there. Oh, maybe there won't be that much left over. I am being quite generous. There will be maybe a little. I'm making this early, so maybe I'll make myself a waffle. Or maybe I won't have to, because it looks like I am right to the bottom. And there we go. Now I'm going to need a fork. And I am going to take this other piece of puff pastry and I am going to place it right over the top. I'm going to go around and make sure. Oops, got my thumb in it. I go around and make sure that this is coming all the way to the edge. I see I've squeezed a little out there. I don't want to do that, because then there's a chance that during cooking it won't seal properly and some of the inner parts of it will come squishing out. I don't want that. That's what the fork is for, though. I am going to use the fork and go around and crimp the edges with the fork for just another added layer of protection. And I'm going to be firm with it too. And get it all the way around. Being careful that when you're using the fork, you are not puncturing a hole into the pastry, because that will also cause it to leak out. And is this something you think you could do or that you might enjoy? It's a bit rustic looking, but like I said, it doesn't have to be rustic looking if you decide that. Let's see, a little bother here. I'm going to just pull this down a little bit so I can get this edge better. There. You could, to make it look a little fancier and not quite so rustic, you could definitely score it off so it's completely square. But I'm fine with this. It's okay for people to know that you actually made it with your own two hands and you didn't just buy it at the store. It helps to make them feel special, and that's the case. Now, I'm just going to brush the last of this flour off the surface. And I'm going to melt some butter in the microwave and come back and we're going to cover this whole thing. And I'm just going to cover every bit. Going along the edges, along the top surface. We're going to get it nice and golden brown. Now I would say this whole thing, there may be some spots that are not quite as thick as others, but I would say it's maybe just over an inch thick for depth, to give you an idea. Take your time doing this. It's such a simple recipe that you can actually use a little bit of time to make sure that you're getting it just right. Last little bit here. Okay. And there we go. All set for the oven. Now I think I better dock it, because if I don't, I can just imagine that the puff pastry would swell up and cause issues. So back to the fork drawer. And I'm going to dock it quite substantially here. I don't want the pastry to bubble up and cause issues. So, because it could, you know how sometimes puff pastry will get big air gaps in them? Well, it could do that. We don't want it to do that. Okay. There, last step. Into the oven it goes. I'm going to put it in there, set a timer for 15 minutes and check it. It usually takes around 15 to 20 minutes for it to be finished. You want it to be nice and golden brown, and that may take a little longer. I don't know your oven, only you do. So just watch it, keep your eyeballs on it, and watch until it's beautiful and golden brown, and then take it out and it'll be ready. Here it is, fresh out of the oven, and you can see how much it's puffed up. But as it cools, this is going to get smaller. It's going to shrink, and it will settle down quite some. So now I'm going to cool this completely. I'm going to cool it, and then I may even, because time's ticking along, I may even pop it into the freezer for a few minutes just to set it up good and hard before I finish it off. And when I'm ready for that, I'll bring you back. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of powdered sugar or icing sugar, give it a little dusting, and then last, before I serve it, I'll just add a bit of whipped topping. And there you go, folks. That's what's going to be served to my guests today for our coffee meeting. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you have, that you would give the video a like or a thumbs up, and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. I appreciate your comments, so do drop me a comment if you've got a moment. And I hope that you're all well and safe, and that you'll take good care of yourself until I see you the next time. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.